Hello, everybody. I'm Matt Vogel, developer and founder of YadaCoin. So we're going to do another tutorial today. Last week we did the user authentication tutorial, and I think that was really helpful. A lot of people contacted me about how to use that, and I think it was a pretty big success. So pretty happy with how that turned out. So we're going to continue on with the tutorials this week, and we're going to be covering user friend requests or contact requests, and then we're going to accept that contact request and list the new contact. So basically you're going to be making a relationship on the blockchain. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to set this up real quick, and I will be right back. All right, and we're back. So we're going to go ahead and get started with this demo or tutorial, sorry. All right, so we have our blank HTML page, just like we had last week. We're dragging it straight in from the file system just to make things simple so you don't have to start up a local web server to host the HTML file. So we're just going to skip that. And let me go ahead and start on our first step. So if you recall, last week we did user authentication. So basically we were pulling in our identity into the application, and then we're authenticating with the backend using that identity. So this week we're going to be doing the user friend requesting or user contact requesting, and then listing that contact request or friend request, and then accepting that friend request or contact request, and then listing the new contact request, or listing the new contact in on your application. So that should complete the entire life cycle of getting, requesting, accepting, and listing relationships from the blockchain. And that's basically, you know, your user management right there. And so you can use the previous tutorial to then authenticate those users as well. So you have user authentication, and then you have user interaction. So there you have a fully fledged Web 3.0 application. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so I am in my tutorials, and I'm going to start with tutorial 2, and all of these tutorials will be available after. I'll put them in the description of the video so that you can refer back to them and follow along. So the whole point of this is to be super easy. We want to show how easy it is to make a Web 3.0 application. All right, so we're just going to start with the HTML. All this stuff, the HTML on the head and the body. All right, and then go ahead and drop a Bootstrap link in there just so that it looks good. Just some boilerplate stuff. So then we'll go ahead and add a button or two to get the identity. So I'm just going to copy and paste some of this straight from the tutorial. This just kind of explains what's going on. So I'm going to read this. So this is the YadaCoin/Center Identity tutorial number 2. And this will show you how to request and show contact requests. So what we're going to be doing is taking identity 1 and identity 2. And identity 1 and identity 2 will refer to identities that you choose from the pop-up window, the identity widget that was just released in 5.1.0. For this tutorial, you're going to need 5.1.2. So go ahead and grab that if you're going to be running this off of local. But if you're not running your own node, yeah, just configure it to, well, it's already configured to run off of YadaCoin.io, so you'll be able to follow along without doing anything extra. All right, so identity 1 and identity 2 are both identities you can create and select in the pop-up window, which I'll show you how to do. And also, that was explained in tutorial 1 if you want more detail. Identity 1 is the identity requesting to be added as a contact by identity 2. So identity 2 is the identity being requested by identity 1. All right, so we have that. Let's check out our page. That text is there. And you can see that now, so let's go ahead and just show that. Okay. So I'm going to go back here, and then we'll go ahead and add some buttons. And again, I'm just going to be copy and pasting, so this doesn't take super long. All right, so we're adding a button to get the identity. And so if we have a button to get identity on click, then we're going to want to define that function. So let's go ahead and define that get identity. Now this is going to overlap with the first tutorial. So if this is review for you, then just go ahead and skip ahead. Anyway, we're going to do a script tag, and then we're going to do that. And that will enable us to get an identity. And then we want to show what identity was selected. So we're going to do that. So we're going to say this is step 1, and then this is going to get identity 1. And we're just going to be referencing this div element using the ID of identity 1. And let's go ahead and do the identity 2. So it's basically just a repeat of that pattern. So we're just going to do identity 2. It's the same function, just to get the second identity. And then we're just going to have the identity as identity 2. So that's what's going to be populated here. We're going to have identity 1 populated here and identity 2 populated here. And again, identity 1 is going to request identity 2, and identity 2 is going to accept the request, and they are both going to show their new friendship or their new relationship on the blockchain that your application will then be able to use for their interactions. So let's we have the get identity function. So let's get the callbacks here. So we need to add an event listener for the post messages that the pop-up window is going to send back to the parent window. Now, this doesn't have to be a pop-up window necessarily. You can do it as an iframe. So you could be trading messages back and forth between your application and an iframe. So if you prefer not to have a pop-up, that's certainly an option. Okay, so this event listener will be listening for messages coming back from the pop-up. So we're going to define the identity handler. So whenever a message comes in with the data method of identity, which means we're trying to get an identity from your identity widget, then this is the branch of code that's going to handle that. So first we're just going to close the pop-up window first and foremost, and then we're going to say, is identity 1 already defined? And we're just doing this to make things simple for the demo. We're saying if identity 1 is not defined yet, then the identity coming back from the pop-up must be identity 1. So we're just going to define that as identity 1, and we're taking that from the event from the pop-up, the data, and then the child of that is identity. So that will be the identity 1 there. And then we're just going to reference identity 1 in the document here, and we're going to populate this H2 element with the identity 1 username, just to give some confirmation back to the user, or you in this case, that that user that you were trying to select was indeed selected. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save that, and let's go ahead and test it out. I'm going to go ahead and switch these windows. And okay, and let's go ahead and do that. So let's grab the identity. Take a second for that to load real quick. Okay, so we have a blank canvas here, so I'm going to create a couple identities. I guess for consistency, we'll just say identity 1. And again, we'll use our test here. And I'm going to click that location, that test location twice, and it's going to bring back an identity. And so we have that saved in our identity widget now. And if you were following last week, you could know that you could use localhost on your local Yada node, or you can use YadaCoin.io. They're both just Yada nodes. So anyway, we have identity 1. We go ahead and click that, and that ends up back here. So let's go ahead and show a little bit more there, just for review's sake. So we'll put a breakpoint in here just to kind of illustrate what's going on. So I'm going to refresh the page and do this again. So select identity, identity 1, and you'll see that the breakpoint's been hit here. And the message that was sent is, so we're calling, when we click that button, it's saying